Among a huge number of other insane claims, Toyota recently said that the entire car industry and the climate will collapse if you buy an EV. That is how scared Toyota is. They are going to lose enormous amounts of market share and potentially go bankrupt within a decade. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to see you here on another great day on planet Earth. If you haven't already subscribed yet, make sure you do so. Otherwise, you won't get notifications in your feed for future videos and updates from the channel. And I really appreciate your support. So if you can chuck down a subscribe or just a like, that would be fantastic. Now, as I said, the Toyota CEO and a number of executives have made insane claims over the last couple of years about EVs being bad for the planet, bad for the automotive industry, bad for you, and just shit in general. That's what they say. And obviously that's because they don't make any. Well, basically they don't. They have a joint venture in China with a company there where they make a few EVs, but they pretty much don't make any. So Toyota's scared and doesn't want you to buy an EV because they don't make any. So they're saying all kinds of things to prevent you, to try to stop you from buying one. Now, Jill Pratt, who incidentally is actually a Tesla owner, and he's a chief scientist at Toyota, explained recently why a BEV-centric, electric car-centric approach is wrong in his opinion. Now, Jill is actually the CEO of the Toyota Research Institute, and he owns a Tesla Model X, which is kind of strange. Don't know how Toyota feels about that, especially considering most Toyota executives get given a Toyota, and he's gone out and bought a Tesla Model X. But anyway, Jill Pratt recently published an article on Medium, and interestingly, the article is entitled "Carbon is Our Enemy. Let's use everything we've got to fight it." The body of the article begins with the following words: "I love electrified vehicles." But after that, things start to go downhill fast. He says why we need hybrids and plug-ins to maximize our limited battery supply and reduce carbon. Now, Green Car Congress came upon Pratt's article and they talked about it and basically ripped it to shreds. Now, to be fair, Toyota did start the kind of hybrid revolution, and that was a good thing. That made people realize that having a battery in your car is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a huge benefit to you. And the Toyota Prius was a car that popularized the hybrid, and that obviously led to people's acceptance of cars like Teslas. But now, as pretty much the entire automotive industry is moving to fully electric cars, Toyota is falling behind. And it's because primarily they're stubborn. They don't want to have the sunk cost. The sunk cost bias here is coming into play. They don't want to pivot. They want to just stick to what they're doing, and they pray and hope that nothing will change. But now the floodgates have well and truly opened. Companies like BYD's electric cars are going crazy. They now sell 80% of their cars are now EVs, and the same thing's happening across the industry. There's huge wait times for EVs because there's enormous demand for them, even for ones that are massively overpriced. Look at the price of electric vehicles in China. Look at the prices of them in Europe. They're probably around about double the price in most instances. The same thing as in the United States. And yet, people are still buying them en masse, still queuing up for them. Tesla is increasing their prices constantly because they have so much demand. So, obviously, the writing is on the wall. In addition to that, nearly every car maker has said that they plan on going full EV, full battery powered, by either 2020, by either 2030, 2035, or 2040. Obviously, companies like Toyota haven't said that. In fact, Toyota plans on selling 85% of its vehicles in the United States as gas-powered vehicles in 2030. Now, I don't know how that makes any sense because obviously full EVs will be cheaper than ICE-powered vehicles by 2030. That is a certainty. So how Toyota plans on getting 85% of its customers to pay more money for their vehicles versus a comparable EV, I don't know, especially when you consider the fact that energy density continues to improve every year. And of course, therefore, EVs range is getting better and better every year. Now imagine how good ranges of just an ordinary EV will be by 2030. They'll be much better than comparable ICE vehicles. There'll be no reason to buy an ICE vehicle unless you simply love ICE. And let's be honest, I think most people will be converted very quickly by the fact that generally sheep are easily led. Now, Pratt isn't in favor of a focus on battery electric vehicles for several reasons. He points out that battery cell production is expensive, well, for Toyota maybe, but not for BYD, which is strange considering Toyota is going to be using BYD's Blade battery and platform, the entire platform in their EVs. But I guess Toyota has to pay more to buy that from BYD. BYD probably makes a profit on that sale. So therefore, yeah, it's going to cost them more. He also reiterates the narrative that battery cell production uses natural resources and produces significant greenhouse gases. While this is true to a degree, this is the type of narrative that has been used for years to steer people away from EVs. And it's wrong. Of course, this idea has been debunked numerous times over the last 5 years, but of course, Toyota would prefer to ignore that and try to con you to keep you from buying competitors' cars. Now, Pratt says this means putting them into a greater number of right-sized electrified vehicles, including HEVs and FHEVs, instead of placing them all into a fewer number of long-range BEVs, like my Model X. So he's saying, don't buy Model X, but I will. Strange. We hardly ever put gas into our RAV4 Prime PHEV, which has a battery 1/5 as large as our Model X BEV. For the same investment in batteries as our single Model X, 5 other RAV4 Prime customers could reduce their carbon footprint too. Now, Pratt also reminds us that different people have different needs, and this is true as we talk about various global markets, big city dwellers versus farmers, people who work at home versus those who travel often, the wealthy versus those who struggle, and the list goes on and on and on. That makes sense. I understand that now. Today, yes, but in 2030, no, it doesn't make sense. Now, he believes Toyota and other automakers should offer a variety of options to best appeal to all customers. Of course, he's towing the party, the company line. These kinds of comments don't surprise me. Maybe he bought his Tesla Model X and his job security has been questioned. He's a Toyota executive and he has to toe the party line until he can find another job. But I think he should act fast. Blockbuster has stores everywhere, and they can afford to ease into the movie streaming business. Well, that's what Blockbuster said. And what happened to them? They were going to ease into it really slowly, like Toyota plans to do. Ease into EVs, offer everyone else the old options because that's what they want. And then what happened to Blockbuster? Remember when Nokia had the best and the cheapest phones? So they could afford to ease into the smartphone business? Look how that went for Nokia. What do you think? Do you remember when Kodak had the best film processing? So they could afford to ease into the digital photography business? How did that easing go for Kodak? How did it go for Nokia? How did it go for Blockbuster? Disruption does not favor the slow. Toyota is used to being the disruptor. They haven't experienced disruption, but they will very, very soon. If you have a loved one or a friend, or you know somebody who's invested in Toyota, and you want to help them, point them to this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.